Benny Hill, the multimillionaire who decided to live like a pauper. Benny Hill was a beloved British comedian, but when the cameras stopped rolling, things weren't so funny. Benny felt unloved and unattractive to women. He had a serious case of chronophobia. Benny was afraid of spending his own money. He'd wear the same clothes until they were falling apart. He glued the soles of his shoes back on. He died alone, surrounded by money and uncashed checks. The Benny Hill Show was on air for 35 years. By the 1980s, the humor was starting to feel outdated. Benny went in for a meeting with Tim's Television. He thought it was to discuss new shows, but he got the boot instead.
Benny was all right when he was young, but when you're in your 60s, it's a slightly different matter to leer at a pretty girl,
said the guy who fired Benny. The network lied and said Benny wanted to retire. He never fully recovered from this. Benny made $10 million from his hit show. He could have bought anything he wanted, but he chose to live like a pauper. Benny couldn't be pressed to buy a new pair of shoes. He'd glue his broken shoes back together. He'd only buy groceries if they were on sale. He'd walk to the BBC headquarters instead of taking a taxi. Benny never owned a car or a home. He spent 26 years in a double-room apartment on Queen's Gate. He picked up many of these habits from his family. Benny had a modest upbringing. Both his father and grandfather were circus clowns. Benny dropped out of high school. He then worked as a milkman, a bridge operator, and a driver. Benny later entertained fellow soldiers during World War II. There was only one luxury he permitted himself: travel. Benny was a Francophile. He enjoyed visiting France, especially Marseille. Even then, he didn't stay in fancy hotels. Benny spoke French fluently. He had a basic understanding of German, Spanish, Dutch, and Italian. His fear of spending money wasn't his only phobia. Benny was also afraid of intimacy. On his show, he was always being chased by Hill's Angels, the dance troupe of scantily clad women. In real life, Benny didn't even talk to them. He felt like he wasn't attractive to women. The comedian was essentially a celibate figure. He never married and had no children. Benny proposed to 2 women, but both declined. Actress Annette Andre turned down his proposal in the 1960s. Despite rumors, Benny always denied being gay. In retirement, he developed depression. Without work to keep him busy, he started eating non-stop. In 1992, Benny gained 10 pounds. That year, he suffered a non-fatal heart attack. His doctor advised him to lose weight. Benny was at risk of heart failure if he did not. He died on April 20, 1992, at the age of 68. He had kidney failure and passed away from coronary thrombosis. His neighbors noticed a foul odor coming from the flat. They alerted Benny's press agent. When Dennis Kirkland arrived, he saw an unsavory scene. Benny Hill's body slumped in front of the TV, surrounded by dirty dishes, glasses, and uncashed checks.